Welcome. In this video, we will walk through the features of Kofax's IPAgility software, also known as IPA. Before we begin, on the left-hand side are a handful of invoices that need to be processed. To begin processing these documents, I will log into the ATA system. Here you can see a standard work queue with some other documents that are ready for validation. I would like to create a new job, and in this case, we're going to use Kofax's software scanner. It's also possible to create a watch folder, a network drop folder, monitor mailboxes, ingest from remote scanners. It's also possible to import documents through our API, and a number of other options as well. To begin this batch job, I'm going to highlight all of the documents that we want to process and select them for import. Along the left-hand side, you can see the documents have been imported into our work folder. The center panel gives us information about the process. We can manually at this time decide what type of PO it is, PO or non-PO. Other options may also be available depending on configuration. Who our client is. On the right-hand side, we have our document viewer that shows an image of the document that we've just imported. At this point, we want to make sure that the scanner has functioned properly, the document is clean, and will be ready for recognition by the OCR engine. I'm going to create the job by clicking the Create Job button at the top, and I will return to my work queue. In this view, along the left-hand side, are a number of work queue filters. I will be jumping from filter to filter, these filters here, 1 through 4. Keep in mind that these filters represent different steps in the IP processing or AP processing pipeline. When I'm moving from filter to filter, these steps could also be routed to different departments or different users within the system. So just keep that in mind as we move from filter to filter. I'm doing it as a single user, but that need not necessarily be the case for your organization. After a moment, the documents that we've just imported into the workflow will be available for validation. To take an activity, I simply click on the line item in my work queue and will be brought to my workspace. Along the left-hand side is all the documents in this batch. In the center pane is our validation information. On the right-hand side, we have a view of the document. And along the bottom, any error messages that the system may be presenting to us. In this case, our line items do not add up. First, I'd like to point out all of the information that the system is capable of extracting. Along the top, we have our document type, our invoice type, PO and non-PO. We also have the vendor information. Using the extracted information from the document, we have validated the vendor against a back-end database. We can just as easily search for vendors by name and replace the information that has been extracted. In this case, the vendor information is correct already. Also note, as I click on these items, the document viewer has highlighted and taken me to the area in the document where the information has been extracted. In order to reconcile this invoice, we need to correct an error on this line item. The system has incorrectly extracted the U of Q value to be 100. To change that value, I simply click in the field and type the correct amount. Once I am done with my changes, I simply hit enter. Once I hit enter, the system is going to reconcile all the line items, the tax, shipping, totals, and subtotals, and ensure that they all add up. Once everything is correct, the document has been validated. As can be seen on the left-hand side, this document no longer has an exclamation point, and we are moved on to the next document in the queue. In this case, the total, net amounts, freight, etc. have been extracted correctly. To add a line item, you simply add a row. And in the document viewer, I can drag and lasso the information I would like to extract. In the case of single words, it's also possible to simply single click. And again, upon hitting enter, the system will validate that the line items add up and will move us to our next document. In this case, I only need to validate that the date is correct. Moving through our invoices, you can see quickly that validating invoices becomes a simple task. In our example workflow, the system has been configured to require validation on all vendor IDs at the very least, so that we can stop and view every invoice and ensure that line items and totals have been matched up. This is not a requirement. By simply hitting enter on these documents, we can move through our queue quickly. It's also possible to move around the system using various keybinds, which I've shown here by double-clicking the control key. Validation operators that become familiar with these keybinds can move swiftly through their invoice processing workflow. We are done validating these invoices, so I will complete the activity. The system will send me back to my work queue to take another validation job. In this case, we'll move on to line pairing. After a moment, the documents will be available for us to do line pairing. In this case, only a few documents of ours require line pairing and have been shown as tasks available in my work queue. Again, keep in mind that I've moved from one filter to another filter in my work queue. Perhaps a line pairing operator is a different person or in a different department. In this view, you're able to see the unallocated items from the invoice and the lines available to book against from the purchase order. It's also possible to view the original invoice, double check. We're matching our 5 Mac OS X mountain lion purchase. And I do the line pairing simply by selecting the items and completing the task. However, in this case, the system has noticed that the invoice is still out of balance. In order to reconcile the invoice, we simply need to add in a line for shipping. And in this case, the total amount of shipping for this is $50. I can complete this task. Back in my work queue, we have another invoice to do line pairing on. It's important to note that for invoices and purchase orders where the line items match, this step is not required. We have a quantity of 10 of stuff 2. totaling $80. And we have a quantity of 10 stuff 1 totaling $50. Once my line pairing is complete, the system reconciles that two-way matching and returns us to our work queue. At this point in the IPAgility workflow, the process is complete, and the invoices are ready for export. The exported items are the original PDF, along with the extracted information. You can see here, it's fairly simple to read the invoice date, number, total, and any line items. And that concludes our tour of Kofax's IP automation.